Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Looks like I've got some work cut out for me since the one I'm fighting first has that goddamn raccoon stuck in his gut. I wonder if my seals are enough to handle it, and then I've got to worry about what that pedo is thinking about, but then again he or she isn't much to worry about. Sigh, oh woe is me, said Naruto dramatically. Naruto later arrived at the hot springs. He then signed it at the cashier and headed straight for the springs. He left his clothes in the changing room before opening the door to the springs. He went in with a towel wrapped around his waist as he carried a bucket along with his iPod inside of it, and he set both down as he entered the spring. As he relaxed into the spring and was about to listen to his iPod before a familiar perverted giggle alerted him, and he turned to see the man who caused his misery in the first place scribbling down something in a notebook as he peeked the female side of the springs. He started to leak something intent but quickly calmed down, which went unnoticed by Jiraiya, and all of a sudden Naruto got an idea, which he smirked and then went through some hand seals before he teleported behind Jiraiya and strike and called out his move. Jiraiya was happily writing down his notes for his latest book as he peeked to the woman's side of the bath when he felt a small ki that disappear quickly, which he shrugged as he continued to scribble on while peeking at the girl's side, which consist of almost all of the kunoichi in Konoha and one from Kumo, who were also relaxing for the day, when all of a sudden he heard a voice calling out the move that only few use and most suffer. He tried to avoid it but was too late when he heard the words Konoha's secret taijustu, 1000 years of pain lightning version, and then he felt pain as Naruto jabbed both his index fingers coated in lightning in his. Jiraiya's face turned sour before he was launched to the other side of the springs. He landed face first into the water, and as he got up while grumbling a little, he suddenly felt the full force no by all men, which was called feminine fury, as he saw all the kunoichi there giving him the death glare. He only had one thing in his mind before he got his daily dose of a mother of all beatings, shit. Naruto returned back to his relaxation once he heard a girly scream with the lines of "No, stop, not there, mommy," before they saw a figure launching out from the female side of the spring to the Hokage office. He smirked at his handiwork before slipping on his earphones as he played his iPod, which made him unconsciously started humming to it, and then that was the day Naruto started to become famous towards the female population. Female side. Damn the arrow senin, always trying to use this as material for his books, said a pissed of Naruto as she made a mental note to tell her mom about it along with Narumi. I've heard that Jiraiya was a pervert, but this is so not cool, said Samui as Yugito told her to relax while she checked up on Kasuga. You said it, Gaki. I should feed him to my snakes next time, said an equally pissed Anko. That would be too kind, Anko. I think Kurenai's genjutsu would be a fitting punishment, said Yugao. Maybe I would use it next time, said a grinning Kurenai. Yeah, you should. Maybe I could bring the triplets too. Hey, do you guys hear drumming? Said a confused Hana, as most of them didn't hear it until someone started singing on the other side. Men's side. Naruto started thumping his hands to the beat of the song before he started singing, Strangers Like Me, Phil Collins. Whatever you do, I'll do it too. Show me everything and tell me how. It all means something, and yet nothing to me. The wall with the hole was suddenly being used, and a couple more somehow appeared. Hey, isn't that your brother? Said Ino, but all she got was a nod from both sisters. Wow, I never thought that your brother had a voice like that, said Samui with a tint of pink on her cheeks as the rest of them kept listening to his singing. I can see there's so much to learn. It's all so close and yet so far. I see myself as people see me. Oh, I just know there's something bigger out there. I wanna know, can you show me? I wanna know about these strangers like me. Tell me more, please show me. Something's familiar about these strangers like me. And as Naruto sang, Some of the workers in the spring also peek in to see who it was that was singing, which somehow Naruto wasn't aware of as he continued on. Every gesture, every move that she makes me feel like never before. Why do I have this growing need to be beside her? Ooh, these emotions I never knew. Of some other world far beyond this place. Beyond the trees, above the clouds. I see before me a new horizon. I wanna know, can you show me? I wanna know about these strangers like me. Tell me more, please show me. Something's familiar about these strangers like me. By this time the female population in the bathhouse was listening intently as they heard Naruto saying, which he still did not notice. Come with me now to see my world. Where there's beauty beyond your dreams. Can you feel the things I feel? Right now, with you. Take my hand. There's a world I need to know. I wanna know, can you show me? I wanna know about these strangers like me. Tell me more, please show me. Something's familiar about these strangers like me. I wanna know. End song. I did this to set the mood for Samui to crush on Naruto first. Naruto sighed sadly when he finished the song. He then grabbed his towel as he got up before he turned to grab the bucket as he showed his chiseled chest for the girls to see, which they all had a major blush as they saw his abs and pack before they see him turn his back facing them, and they saw that he had a tattoo there, which was a sword pointing downwards, and there were two dragons, one white and one black, circling it before both heads meet at the top of the handle, which looked pretty cool in most of the girls' opinion, especially Samui. When Naruto got out, one of the few most favorite pastime for girls started in the girls' side, and some of the staff that managed to hear his voice, and with that started a rumor that ran like a wildfire about Naruto's singing. Naruto got out of the building and walked aimlessly and thought about his current situation with the pedo. As he reached towards the training ground, he blurred through some hand signs before slamming it to the ground, calling out reverse summoning Justu, and with that Naruto disappear in a poof of smoke. He then reappear on a platform which is suspended in the middle of the sky. He looked around a little before a deafening roar shook him a little as a shadowed figure appeared from the clouds circling Naruto before stopping in front of them, and he said, "Well, whelp, are you ready for the next step of your training?" Said the figure, to which Naruto just smirked and said, "Bring it, cause this dragon is ready." Which the figure smirked at his proclamation and said, "Then let us begin, whelp," before he started charging at him. Naruto's smirk turned into a feral grin as he took out his swords and charged at it. Namikaze household. Minato came back home with a turd look on his face as he finished another long and useless few hours of a council meeting, which consisted of the civilian council trying to muscle into ninja affairs and also trying to set up his daughters with Sasuke, while Kenzo with another civilian girl, which was quickly shot down by Minato. And then there was Hiashi, who was screaming that Naruto should be ripped of his ninja license and sent to jail for stealing his clan Just You, but was shot down again by the Hiruzen, saying that the Wind Dome was a legit Just You and that there was no rule that a ninja could not create Just You which is similar to any other, and he told him that every Just You was copied one way or another, which shut him up. But Minato was worried that this would not be the last he heard of this. Why can't I ever have a break from all this bullshit? Said Minato as he sat down on the couch and sighed, when suddenly Kushina came out from the kitchen and asked why when she heard him say that. Minato then told her about his meeting, and by the end of it she was livid at the civilian council and was ready to give them a piece of her mind, until the doors opened and both of them saw Narumi and Naruko, while behind them was Kenzo along with Tsunade, Shizune and a bandaged Jiraiya. Once they saw Jiraiya, Kushina then asked all too sweetly what happened, and when Naruko told her what happened, let's just say Jiraiya had needed a couple more bandages and right now was lying in a small crater with smoke coming out from it, as Kushina and Tsunade both dusted their hands before all of them, including a conscious Jiraiya, re-entered the house to discuss their training. Well, first off, congratulations to Kenzo for making it to the final, but don't let it get to your head. you still need to train, which is why I'm gonna teach you Sage Mode once we get started. Said a smug Jiraiya, and with it Kenzo had stars in his eyes because right now he has a chance to learn to get stronger, and once he mastered this in the Rasengan, which he and the girls only managed stage 2 of the training, he will be one step closer like his dad and a chance to kick his loser of a brother and show that he will never be like him. While he was thinking that, the girls were having their own talk. All right girls, you might not have made it to the finals, but I am still proud of you for giving it your all in the fight, but that doesn't mean you can slack off from your training. So with that in mind, Tsunade will help you with your chakra strength along with some medical ninjutsu with Shizune when they have time, while I will help you with your kenjutsu and your chakra chains. Sound good to you? Said a cheery Kushina. Minato was beaming with pride as he see his children happy with their training schedule, but he fell back to a frown when he still remember what Naruto told him, and right now his plan went down the drain when he saw that it did nothing to bring them closer, but he won't give up on it until an idea struck and he asked, "Hey Naruko, do you know where your brother is?" Naruko answer, "No dad, last we saw he was heading towards a training ground. Why?" "Because I think I will teach him the Rasengan along with you guys, what do you think?" Said Minato, but before the girls said anything Jiraiya clasped his shoulder and said, "Are you sure Minato? After all he said he might beat you up." But Minated him it will be okay, but because of what Jiraiya said the mood went down a little but was broken out of it when Kenzo started dragging Jiraiya out so he could learn Sage Mode, and with it the girls also went ahead to train along with Minato, wondering if what he thought about earlier might work since he saw that Naruto was a little closer to Naruto, and then left pondering about it while they train. Night time. Hayate was not having a good night as he dodged another strike coming from Kabuto. How did he get into this mess? Well, it started out as a routine patrol around the village when suddenly he saw the Suna team's teacher talking to a hooded figure, and that's when he found out about the invasion coming this month, and he decided to tell the Hokage, but he was found out and because of it ensured a fight for his survival because Kabuto was beating him soundly, and when Kabuto was about to strike he suddenly had to dodge when a kunai came aiming at his head. While he dodged it he still got a cut on his cheek because the kunai had wind chakra infused in it before it was thrown. Kabuto looked towards the direction of where the kunai was thrown to see Naruto leaning on a tree smirking at him with his arm cross. Well, what do you know? The pedo decided to send his sleeve to become my lab rat to test out some of my new moves with. Said Naruto, and all of a sudden he disappear from his spot and then appear in front of Kabuto with his sword mid-drawn poised to slice Kabuto in half, but he managed to KAWAMARI and Naruto just sliced a log in half. Naruto then slowly scanned the area for him until, "You are quite good Naruto-kun. I guess Orochimaru-sama was right when he said you're powerful, but no matter, you won't live past this day," said Kabuto as his voice echoed throughout the place, and then he struck by throwing Senbons at Naruto, who effortlessly dodged them, but then Kabuto came out from the ground with his hands glowing green ready to hit Naruto, but he was shocked when Naruto grabbed his hands and then proceeded to crush them. Kabuto cried out in pain as Naruto continued the pressure on his hands. As he slowly got to his knees, he managed to look up to see and was stunned to see Naruto's eyes weren't blue anymore, instead it was black with a white slit like a dragon's, and it was staring at him menacingly, and as Naruto tried to kick him, a volley of kunais came out of nowhere and that caused Naruto to let go and jump back to dodge them. He recovered to see two cloaked figures carrying Kabuto up, and they quickly threw a smoke bomb onto the ground. Once the smoke cleared up all of them were gone, but that didn't deter Naruto. No, he actually grinned at the prospect. He took a few whiff of air, and once that was done he held out his hand like he was about to throw a spear. Naruto then charged his lightning chakra to his hand and it slowly formed a spear of lightning which cackled in the moonlight. Hayate, who was watching the small tussle earlier, stare in shock as Naruto form a weapon made from pure lightning, and it looked like he was ready to throw it, to which he did with gusto as the spear flew into the sky heading to its intended target. Once that was done, Naruto turned to Hayate and said, "Better tell what you heard from the Sand Raccoon Sensei to the blonde pencil you people call Hokage quickly before something else happen, and oh, you better not tell anyone about my new skill or else." And then a loud boom came from the forest out on the outskirts of Konoha, which quickly alerted the border patrol to investigate, but Hayate knew who did it, and as Naruto waited for it to calm down, he returned with his slitted eye and told Hayate in a deep voice, "You are gonna see that move up close and personal," which he then disappear in a swirl of leaves. Naruto's room. Naruto reappear in his room, but he was wobbling a little before he managed to flop onto the bed. "Damn, looks like using that mode for that long was too early for me. Oh well, still got a month left, so I should be able to get it down by then," said Naruto, and as he was about to sleep, a knock was heard, which was his door. Curious, since none of his family ever bothered, and was surprised to see Naruto standing there with a smile on her face. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "What are you doing here so late, and even better yet, how would you even know if I am in the room?" Naruto just kept smiling and said, "Not telling for the second one, and for the first, Dad said he is gonna train you together with us for the rest of the month, isn't that great, Ni-chan?" Naruto had a small scowl on his face when he heard that, which was noticed by Naruto, which she frowned at and said sadly, "What's wrong, Ni-chan? You don't want to be with us, or do you still hate all of us for not noticing you?" Naruto sighed a little at what she said. He didn't really hate all of them, just the older members of the family, because of the perverted toad talking about some prophecy that might change the world. From what he heard about from his summons, this was akin to prophecy manipulation unless the summoner passed a certain test requirement, and it was punishable by summons law, but it looks like the toads got a little in over their heads and decided to tell him anyway, and because of it Narumi and Kenzo became arrogant, but Narumi managed to mellowed out a little after the kicking he gave her, but he didn't have to worry about those damn toads right now because they will get theirs soon, but for now he had to stop Naruto from crying because she was the last person he wanted to see cry. "Look, Naruto, I don't hate you, in fact I like you out of everybody here because you take the time to notice me, even though those people started training you. It's just that I hate them because they threw me aside because I didn't have any of the Kyuubi's power, and now they decided to train me after all this time, and even then I got stronger without them, so you should know how I feel about this, but since I know you won't let this go, so how about this? I'll come by whenever I can, but I won't guarantee I will get along with them, and I will try and teach you some off moves to okay." That managed to put a smile on Naruto's face when she heard it, even though it wasn't much, but she'll take it, and she said happily, "Okay, Ni-chan, so are you gonna come tomorrow since it starts then?" "Maybe." "Okay, Naruto said with a sigh as he was about to close his door, but noticed Naruto still stood there, which made him raise an eyebrow as she looked down onto the ground a little before shyly asking, Ni-chan, can I sleep with you tonight like we used to when we were kids?" Naruto again was a little shocked at what she was saying, but relented because he could almost never say no to her, so with that in mind he ushered her in. Naruto looked around the room a little and was surprised that it stayed the same as she remembered when she was younger. A dark blue room with stars and comets on the ceiling, and the bed was a normal one which was able to fit two-person, and a small bathroom near the door. She went to the bed and she waited for Naruto to come out from the bathroom, which he did, and was now sporting a white t-shirt with blue boxers with pictures of lightning on it. After that both of them laid in the bed and slept for the night, all the while Naruto was thinking about how to handle meeting them for training tomorrow morning. The sun shone into the bedroom and caused Naruto to stir from his sleep as he mentally cursed the sun, but then he felt some weight on his right arm. Thinking that he slept on it, he slowly opened his eyes to see a shade of yellow in front of him. He widened his eyes a little before he realized that he and Naruto slept together last night. So with that in mind he nudged her a little to wake her up, which worked as she started to stir a little. She woke up to see that she was not in her room, but she remembered that she stayed the night in Naruto's, and with that she quickly got up and headed back to her room before anyone noticed, and Naruto did his morning ritual and got ready for the day. Breakfast was good itself, as Naruto made his own food like he always did in the past and was about to head out for the door when Naruto came down from the stairs along with his family. Minato and Kushina looked sadly at their eldest as he went out the door, but not before being stopped by Naruto to tell him when the training will start, which he nodded to, and that brought some smiles on their faces. They thought the plan might work, and with that Kushina just went to prepare breakfast as the family of five start the day. With Naruto. Naruto was walking down the street as he thought about what to do before going back to training with his family. When he saw Haku walking towards him, she still wore the same clothes when they were in wave, but on her forehead was a Konoha protector. Haku also managed to see him and decided to call out to him, which he responded in kind. They talked a little about their lives, and Naruto was happy that Haku managed to enter the medical corps despite of him hating who runs it, so with that in mind they decided to hang out until it was time for Naruto to head for training, as Naruto would call it. They headed for the market to buy some stuff for Haku's new home, and most of them were greeted by jealousy stare from both the male and female population because of both their looks and closeness to each other. Once they brought the stuff they needed, they decided to relax at a nearby park. The park itself was quiet and nice, since the only ones there were mothers with their children playing in the playground. They talked for a while, and when it looked like it was time for him to go, they left the park to go to Haku's house first so that he could drop off her stuff that they carried, and after that Naruto went off without noticing a small blush on Haku's face as he left. He returned to his home just in time for the siblings to start their training. He found them behind the house at their personal field, and looks like they were about to start. Naruto and Narumi were there along with Kushina and Shizune. Naruto noticed that Kenzo wasn't there, but figured those idiots focus on him more since he managed to enter the finals instead of Naruto and Narumi. He shook his head because of it, but decided to it up and get it over with it, since he only came because Naruto asked him to. Naruto saw him coming, so she happily called him over so they could train together. He reached there, and that's when Kushina decided to talk. Alright, since your father and Tsunade is busy at work while Jiraiya is training Kenzo in MT. Mayuboku, not sure if I got it right, so for today Shizune will teach Naruto and Narumi some medical ninjutsu while I go teach Naruto our Uzumaki Kenjutsu style. Okay, said a somewhat happy Kushina, but was put down when Naruto said, "Sorry Uzumaki-sama, I would prefer using the style my brother taught me instead of yours, but I wouldn't mind a spar with you to test my skills." The girls were shocked at what he said, more so for Kushina, since she heard that her own son doesn't want to learn her clan's kenjutsu but that of someone else, but when she heard he wanted to spar, that somehow managed to smile a little, thinking that he might need some experience fighting other sword users, so she complied sadly. The rest of the girls decided to skip the lessons to see this match because they were curious on how Naruto would fare against one of the few top kenjutsu users. Both of them stood opposite of each other as they got ready for the match. Kushina drew her blade and got ready in her Uzumaki stance, while Naruto just drew his sword and gave her a come here motion, which started the bout as both clashed in the middle of the arena. Sparks flew as both blades clashed, neither giving an inch for the other until both of them pushed each other, which caused both of them to skid a few feet back. Giving no breather, Naruto charged in and stabbed Kushina, only for her to sidestep as she countered with a downward strike, but Naruto jumped to the right to dodge it. He recovered to see Kushina coming at him with an upward slash, which he flipped backwards to avoid it. Once he landed, he had to block a strike aimed at his head. He pushed her and countered with a horizontal slash at her midsection, but she leaned back enough for it to pass her. They engage in a clash once more, but Naruto grit his teeth a little before he quickly unsheathed the sword with his left hand and gave an upward slash. Kushina saw this and managed to dodge it by pushing Naruto back, which made the strike miss. She then dashed straight at him and gave a downward slash which Naruto had to block by holding both swords up in an X formation. Thinking he left himself wide open, Kushina decided to give a Spartan kick at him only for Naruto's own leg to block it by kicking the leg to the side, and he followed it up by giving a kick to her instead which connected. She flew a few feet before she regained her footing only for her to see Naruto coming at her with both blades in hand, and she thought that he was gonna try like what he did with Zabuza at Wave, but was shocked when Naruto threw one of his sword at her. Thinking quickly, she rolled to the side as the sword flew past her, but she had to block the stab aimed at her. She let the strike pass by her and was about to hit him with her fist, but he rolled to dodge it. Naruto regained his footing and both sword users stare each other down, waiting for the next move, all the while Kushina was thinking, I never thought Naruto-kun was this good. It was a good idea that I decided not to hold back because I would have lost if I did. Until she noticed Naruto was smirking, which confused her until he struck by dashing straight at her. She prepared for the attack only for him to skid a few feet in front of her and he pulled back his left hand. Kushina was confused by his action until her senses told her to duck, which she did not. That became her downfall because Naruto capitalized by grabbing the sword which had ninja wire in it and he did an upward X slash. Kushina blocked the strike, but the force was enough to disarm her and it was over when Naruto put both blades on her neck ready to cut it clan off if she tried anything. Kushina, knowing this, raised her hands in defeat. The girls were stunned that Naruto could beat Kushina in a straight-up sword fight and was brought out of it when Naruto started talking. I guess this was an okay spar for me, but a piece of advice. You should really get back in shape because from I can tell you were a lot weaker than you were in your prime, but I guess family life managed to mellow you guys out. Kushina was stunned at how Naruto was talking to her like that. Part of her felt some pride that her son got stronger, but the other was her habanero side who wanted to teach him a lesson in respect. Naruto sheathed his swords and walked out of there, but not before turning back to say, just so you know, I really wanted to get a sweet victory against you, so like I said, get back in shape because next time I am not gonna hold back, and whether or not you are ready I will show you all who is the weak one around here. That statement shocked everyone there as they saw him disappear into the house and wondered if what he said is true or not, and with that in mind they continued training for the rest of the day, not knowing that Naruto himself was watching them in the background. Today was the day of the finals and everyone in Konoha were excited about it because of the matches, especially the fourth Hokage's son Kenzo, who most thought was the favorite to win, while the ninjas were on standby because of the invasion coming today and are on guard for anything that might come. Up high on the stadium were the cages of the region, which was the Raikage, who is a dark-skinned man named along with his two bodyguards, one of which was writing down something in a notepad while the other was his secretary, and next was the Kazekage and his bodyguards, and lastly was the Hokage, and alongside him was his Anbu bodyguards, and right now he was feeling nervous because of the invasion and the aftermath of it, but he hoped it might turn out all right as he looked down at the respective genin and smiled at them because of how far they come, until he saw his eldest and frowned and hoped that the training he did with Kushina was all right, since during that time he asked if he wanted to learn the Rasengan and his answer was a two-finger salute, and said he didn't need his help but was put out of it when it was his turn to give a speech. Field. Everyone on the field was listening to the speech except for a few, and one of which was Naruto, who was thinking about the stuff that happened the past few weeks, which was training with his summons and his spars against his family, except for Jiraiya and Kenzo, who are Kami knows, whereas he gave some pointers to Naruto and surprisingly Narumi when both of them asked for it, and some small dates he had with Haku around the village. But the weirdest thing that happened during the week was the ever-growing looks he got from the female population, which freaked him out a little. Hell, he even caught Makoto and some female Junin peeking on him in the springs. He shivered as he thought he might have attracted something that all men who know this feeling was cursed by. Fangirls, the bane of most men existence, only comparable to a cage towards paperwork, well except for Naruto, since he knew the secret to beat it but left it out, so for when he used it he get an IOU from a cage. Then the proctor told him about the changes in the match, which he raised an eyebrow at but shrugged and got ready when the proctor told all of them except for him and Gaara to head up to the competitor box. Cage box. Well, isn't this interesting? The son of the Hokage versus the son of the Cage. This is gonna be quite a match to watch. Said A. I couldn't agree more, Rakage Dono. Said the Cage, but inwardly he cursed, thinking his plan might be foiled, and was ready to call it off but didn't, since he doubted that anything could stop the one tail. Of course in the end it will be my ninja that win this whole thing. Said Aile. Minato did nothing more than just stare worriedly at his son and hope he might not end up like Rock Lee, though he managed to heal thanks to Tsunade, and even then he still needed time to heal, so he did nothing more than pray silently that Naruto doesn't get hurt too much. Field. Well, Naruto date, I hope you can prove my existence. Said Gaara in a monotone voice. Is that you talking or the raccoon? But quite frankly I don't give a rat's about it, so come on, this dragon is ready for a fight. Answer Naruto as both of them waited for the proctor to start the match. The proctor looked at both of them before he started the match. Once he did that, Gaara quickly uncorked his gourd and let some sand fall onto the ground, which he quickly controlled and sent them straight at Naruto. Naruto waited for the sand to come closer, and when it did he jumped up and quickly did some hand signs and then called out water style. Water wave just as he put his hand in a C shaped in front of his mouth before a stream of high pressure water came out from it and was heading straight for Gaara, who just used his sand to block it, but Naruto didn't let up as he did a couple more hand signs before he landed and then called out water style. Water drill bullet, which he then let loose some bullet-like water at him, who continued to block it with just his hand. Is that all you got, date? I am not impressed. Said Gaara as he tried to use his sand until he realized that his sand was slower than usual, until he heard some chuckling. Don't you go to the beach, Gaara, cause if you did then you know that when water hits sand they become quite heavy, and do you know what that means? Said Naruto, and Gaara was about to answer until Naruto appeared in front of him and gave a Spartan-like kick to his chest, which sent him flying straight into a wall. Gaara came out of the wall unfazed and was about to retaliate until he heard a voice above him that said, "You know what else? Sand have some electrical conductivity, Sue." He looked up to see Naruto standing on the wall grinning at him, but before he could retaliate, Naruto shot some lightning from his hand that hit him straight center, which gave him a shock of his life, which Naruto capitalized by giving a punch to Gaara's face from the momentum he did from running down the wall, and the punch sent him down to the ground, creating a small crater. Competitors box. Most of the people there had a shocked look on their faces as they were seeing Naruto beating Gaara, but none more so than Kankuro and Temari. What the hell, he's beating Gaara like he was nothing. We might have to cancel the invasion if he could do that, were the thoughts of Baki as he looked worried at what was happening. Cage box. Seems your son is getting the heck beat out of him, Cage Dono, but I am curious, isn't your son supposed to be Uzumaki Namikaze Minato, so why is he called date? Asked a curious A. Minato couldn't answer A, and he knew it but decided to keep quiet about it, but he did make a mental note to find out later. The Cage on the other hand was cursing because he might have to call of the invasion at this rate, so he made a small hand signal to one of his men to call of the invasion, which was noted by a figure standing in the dark on the opposite side of the arena, who silently fumed at Naruto as he rubbed his chest area a little where the wound was located for him and hoped he might get a chance to him when they escaped. Field. Naruto dodged another wave of sand heading straight at him before he fired another water bullet at Gaara, who still blocked it with his sand, but he didn't count on the chakra-enhanced punch he got from Naruto as soon as the sand died down, which sent him flying once more into the wall. Naruto stood there a little unfazed as he waited for the right moment, because he only has one shot at doing what he needed to do. As the dust cleared, everyone saw Gaara standing up, but then he was laughing like a madman, which freaked out most of the people there. Yes, this is what I want. You Naruto date will prove my existence. said Gaara in a deep voice as he slowly transformed, but he couldn't because Naruto intercepted him as he called out Sealing Style. Soul Seal Barrier, and he slammed his palm at Gaara's gut and he stumbled a little before he started to convulse and then he dropped onto the ground. Everyone there was shocked beyond all means at how Naruto beat Gaara, but the Sunanins were more afraid because they were scared that Naruto released the one tail, but then something else shocked them even more when they heard a loud snoring, and when all of them found the source, it was Gaara who made the sound. Naruto and most of Konoha sweat dropped at this, and then Naruto said, "Damn, he can snore." Which the proctor nodded at before he announced me the winner, which earned a round of cheers from the people. Competitor's box. What the hell, he managed to beat Gaara and stop him from transforming, said a shocked Kankuro, who was mirrored by Tamari, who was a little glad that Gaara managed to get what he wanted all these years, and that was to sleep, which made her smile since she was happy that her brother could find some peace. Wow, I never thought Naruto could beat that monster, said Choji, while Shikamaru just muttered, "Troublesome blonde. Che, he just got a lucky shot in, but he won't beat me," said a smug Kenzo, while the rest just shake their heads and decided not to comment lest they want the Kenzo rant, as they called it. Cage box. Wow, I never thought that your son could do a sleeping funjutsu. Maybe I should ask him to make some so I could sleep properly without worrying about that god-awful paperwork, said as he laughed a little. Minato was a little shocked at how his son managed to learn funjutsu and then frowned at how much he did not know about his son. The Kage was fuming at how Naruto managed to beat Gaara and seal of his Biju, and he made the signal to cancel the invasion, which a figure in the shadows nodded to, but inwardly was angry as he glared at Naruto's back. Competitor's box. Naruto went to the competitor's box to sit down, but not before passing by both Shino and Kenzo, who smirked at him as if he were nothing, but Naruto just ignored him and went to his seat, which coincidentally was in between Samui and Raito, with the former blushing while the latter just gave him a thumbs up, which he returned with a smile. Who do you will win this match?" said a somewhat nervous Samui as she saw the match started. "Truth to be told, Kenzo will win the match, and as much as I hate him, I do know when credit is due. No offense to Shino, he's good, but Kenzo is a little better. But let's not talk about the jackass, I like to know more about you a little," said a grinning Naruto. "Me?" asked Samui, while Raito did a spit take at what he heard and then quickly got away, since he and every male in Kumo knows not to flirt with her lest you want to lose your mini-you, and if you make her sad then hell would rain over from the Raikage, who is like a father to her since he promised her real father to take care of her before he died in the war, so she was practically off limits to everyone. Why sure, after all I rather talk to you than watching my idiot brother trying to act cool. And then he heard everyone gasp when Kenzo said something, and then everyone saw him make a clone as he held out his hand in a familiar position that everyone knows, but Naruto did nothing more than just started counting. Field. This was not looking good for Shino as he struggled against the water whips that Kenzo's clones were using on him, and then right now he sees another clone doing something on Kenzo's hand, and then he widened his eyes behind his glasses as he realized what was going on and quickly tried calling his bugs to attack, but it was hard to do since his bugs were useless, since Kenzo could overpower his bugs' chakra-eating abilities by using the Kyuubi's chakra in him, so the most he could do was try to distract him. "Well, Shino, be glad that you will be my first to take this attack," said Kenzo as he prepared his father's signature move. Competitor's box. "No way, is he gonna do what I think he's doing?" said a shocked Ino along with a couple of bug-eyed ninjas, except for Naruto and Raito, while the former just counted silently while the latter could care less. "Yes, Ino, he is. Looks like he also managed to finish learning the Rasengan just like Naruto and Narumi did," said Kushina as she just came from the clan side of the box along with Naruto and Narumi along with Anko and Kurenai in tow. Most of the genin were shocked that not just Kenzo but also Naruto and Narumi managed to learn the fourth signature move along with Samui as she heard the tale of how powerful the Rasengan is and was trying to formulate a plan when she someone say pathetic. All of them turned to see Naruto looking at Kenzo once he finished his Rasengan and then shook his head as he said, 12 seconds real pathetic cause in that time a ninja could do almost anything to him. I'm surprised Shino didn't try anything despite seeing the move that made Blondie the pencil famous. All of them were shocked at what Naruto was saying except for the female Uzumaki Namikaze as they frown at how Naruto talked about his father since they thought he might forgive him when he tried to teach him the Rasengan but was shot down even though they were somewhat getting along with him during their time sparring this past month and they had Naruto to thank somewhat since she also wanted him to get along with them. They were then brought out of their muse when the proctor declared Kenzo the winner and then called for the next competitors down. Shikamaru was about to back out when he saw Tamari gliding down to the field using her fan when all of a sudden he heard a voice said, "Sorry Shikamaru, but your mom paid me to make sure you participate in the fight, so see ya." Shikamaru had no time to react as Naruto kicked him in the and sent him flying over the railings and onto the ground which he landed hard on as he mumbled troublesome blonde and mother which he was hit on the head by a flying frying pan which was thrown by his mother and once again he came up muttering troublesome. "Are you just gonna stand there or are you gonna fight?" said Tamari who was eager for ankicking. "Troublesome," was all Shikamaru said before the proctor started the match. Same as canon. Competitors box. "What the hell was that all about?" shouted a somewhat angry Ino. "I mean he had her where he wanted her and he just quite like that. What do you accept? He's a Nara and they are the most laziest of people in the entire elemental nation," said Naruto with a raised eyebrow while Ino just fumed a little more. Cage box. "Well, looks like this battle of minds is quite interesting despite the Nara quitting in the end, but still these two are definitely Chunin material, don't you think?" said A. "Yes they do, but I think I might hold Tamari off from promotion till a later date, but they do prove themselves to be Chunin material." Answer the cage. Minato agreed with a but he then narrowed his eyes at the cage a little before turning back to the match. Field. Right now on the field was Kankuro and Samui who was called by the proctor since it was their turn to fight, but Kankuro was sweating a little since the invasion was called off and was thinking of quitting, but the thought went out the window when the proctor started the match and Samui closed the gap between them and used her tanto and did a horizontal slash at his chest. Kankuro saw it coming and he quickly KAWAMARI to dodge the attack. He then quickly took out his puppet he used in the prelims and sent it straight at her, who quickly jumped back to get some distance and then quickly made some hand signs and then called out lightning style, lightning panther charge, which she then made a panther made of lightning to attack Kankuro's puppet, which connected and it created a small explosion. As the smoke cleared out a little, suddenly 6 spears came out from the smoke aimed at Samui, who managed to dodge it. She saw that the spears were the arms of the puppet she destroyed and right now she has to play defense since he could control all the arms at his fingers. Cage box. "I see that your genin are all well trained," said Minato to a who just laughed a little before telling him. "That's right Minato, and I'm sure my genin team will win since I trained Samui personally while Raito is in a whole league of his own. I don't think you should count any of these genin out yet Raikage-sama, since right now your genin got poisoned by my son's puppet," said the cage. Which Shaka as he quickly turned to see Samui being a little sluggish in her movement in the fight, which made him worried a little. Field. Samui was panting hard as she dodged another strike since she got cut earlier by one of the spear arms, which she cursed a little since all puppet users have poison laced in them and right now she is feeling the effects of it coursing in her veins. With her vision slowly fading, she decided to a move that might tip the scale of the fight or she might pass out from it, so with that in mind she charged straight at Kankuro, who smirked, thinking. She decided to charge at him, use his puppet's arm as spears and then strike her once more, but all of a sudden she coated her body in lightning and then suddenly disappear. Kakuro was in shock at how she managed to disappear until he felt something on his cheek, and all of a sudden he was flying from a punch that Samui delivered, but she was not done yet as she disappeared once more, and then most of the spectators were treated by the sight of Kankuro being a ragdoll as he was being thrown everywhere by Samui, and then she ended it with a hammer punch which sent him down to the ground with a loud crash and it made a small crater on the ground. Everyone looked down to see that Kankuro was knocked out and was unable to continue, and then the proctor declared Samui the winner, which she then fainted after that. Cage box. Impressive that your genin is able to do that much damage and still win despite being poison. She deserves to be chunin. Said the cage. I couldn't agree more, but I hope that she could continue, but with that last move and the poison it will be quite slim, but nevertheless I am still proud of my adoptive daughter. Said A. True, but this next match might be more interesting to watch since both of your sons are fighting this round, said the cage, while Minato continued to stay silent since this match might be the most troublesome and hoped that both might not try to each other as he watched both of them head to the field and got ready. Competitors box. So who do you guys think will win this one? Said Choji as he munched on some chips. Of course it's gonna be Kenzo. He is trained by the fourth and Jiraiya of the Sannin. It's gonna be him that win, not Naruto. Said Ino, with Sakura agreeing. Troublesome. Didn't you guys notice that Naruto beat both Neji and your precious Sasuke at the same time, as well as he humiliated them in the process? Said a bored Shikamaru. Ha! There's no way that dead last could beat Sasuke-kun. He probably got a lucky shot in when he was busy fighting Neji. Shouted the resident pink-haired harpy, when all of a sudden there was a loud thud and then Sakura saw that a spear was stabbed at her with her neck between the blades. Everyone turned to see Raito with one of his arm outstretched before looking Sakura dead in the eye and said, I suggest you shut up or next time you might lose that annoying voice of yours, but then again it might actually save a lot of trouble since everybody hates it. And one more thing. Get rid of that fangirl attitude of yours. The shinobi world isn't all hearts and rainbows. There are no knight in shining armor, and there is definitely no chance in hell that your precious Sasuke could give a shit looking at you, so take my advice. This world has no place for someone like you, so you better shape up or the next time it will be your head. Do you get me? Not trusting her voice, Sakura did nothing more than just nodded, while the rest were slightly scared at what he did, and the Konoha shinobi prayed that what he said could get into that thick skull of hers and maybe Ino too before they turned back to the match. Field. Well, looks like even a loser like you could make it, but it ends here, so how about you give up and get lost, since there is no chance in hell you could beat me. Said a smug Kenzo to Naruto, who in turn just looked at him, then to the proctor and said in a deadpan voice, just start the match would ya before he starts ranting about how good he is like the Uchihas. That infuriated Kenzo even more, while the proctor looked at Naruto with a WTF look before dismissing it and then started the match. Kenzo started off with a dash towards Naruto and tried a straight at his face, but Naruto just tilted his head to the left, which made Kenzo missed, and then Naruto followed it up with a quick uppercut that connected, which made Kenzo flew up a little before Naruto grabbed his face and slammed it to the ground. He let go of his grip and then he stomped his foot on Kenzo, but Kenzo managed to recover by rolling out of the way. He quickly got up and jumped back to get some distance, while Naruto did nothing more than just standing there looking bored. Kenzo was glaring at him a little after that exchange, but it didn't deter him as he tried once more by taking out his tanto and gave a downward slash, which Naruto lazily dodged again by sidestepping. That made Kenzo hit the ground with his tanto, and Naruto capitalized by kneeing him in the gut, which made him double over before he kicked him in the side, which sent him flying to the wall. Kenzo hit the wall hard before he fell unceremoniously to the ground. The crowd was in shock as how the so-called dead last was beating the one of the savior of Konoha without breaking a sweat. Kenzo, however, after getting up, was angry at how Naruto was just toying with him like he was nothing, which prompted him to call out his chakra chains to attack. Naruto, who saw this a mile away, just did a jump backflip which made the chains missed him by a hair and then impaled themselves into the opposite wall, while Naruto just landed gracefully on top of the chains, which shocked Kenzo a little, which Naruto capitalized by using a burst of speed on the chains and head straight for Kenzo. Kenzo only had a moment to react by pulling back his chains, which made Naruto stumble a little before he jumped up, which made him a target, which Kenzo capitalized by flipping through some hand signs and called out wind style, air drill bullets, before he shot bullets made of wind which hit Naruto in a small explosion. Thinking he won the match, Kenzo turned, not waiting for the proctor to call the match, but when he did, he saw a fist connected to his face which sent him flying to the ground as his body skidded a little on the floor. Kenzo looked to see from his position was Naruto, who was standing in his spot a moment ago with a bored look on his face before talking to him, and said, "You know, you should always check your opponent before you turn, because the next time you do this it will be your life gone, not that so-called pretty face of yours broken." Kenzo got up again as he spat some blood on the ground as he scowled again at Naruto on how he was toying with him, but he grinned as he made a shadow clone and held out his hand, to which Naruto just raised an eyebrow at before shaking his head as he quickly flashed some hand sign and then called out wind style, wind/justu, before he did a quick draw with his sword, and out came a wind slash which hit the clone as it poof away, and the backlash was enough for Kenzo to be sent back down to the ground. Seriously, you should really learn how to make the pencil's move faster, or at least learn how to distract me while you do it. I mean, if you take that long just to do the Rasengan, then you are better off dead, since even an academy student could do any elemental dragon just you faster than you could do that move," said a very annoyed Naruto. "Shut up. At least I know a just you from my family while you don't," said Kenzo, while Naruto just raised his eyebrow while shaking his head and said, "And what makes you think I didn't? I mean, I did paint the Hokage monument in broad daylight and none of them even noticed before I finished, and even then it took at least 6 Anbu and a few Chunin to catch me, so what makes you think that I couldn't go into the library and learn it? But you know what, let me show you my progress in it, since after all action do speak louder than words." Everybody was curious at what Naruto said, but that was placed with shocked when Naruto did a one-handed Rasengan in less than a second, which shocked everybody there, but more so towards Konoha, as they were shocked at a genin being able to do the Rasengan as quickly as Minato did, but they were in more of a surprise when 2 shadow clones appear behind him, and all of them wondered how much control does he have to do a seal-less hand sign to make the shadow clones. But then Naruto did something no one thought was possible, as he raised the Rasengan up while the clones pumped some wind chakra up, which made a loud screeching sound, and all of the people had to cover their ears at it, but then their eyes went out of their sockets as they saw Naruto made a shuriken shape on the Rasengan, and that made a lot of noise everywhere in the arena. Cage box. No way, it's impossible. How did he manage to finish the Rasengan? Shouted a bugged-eye Minato, while the rest were also in shock at how a genin managed to make the Rasengan even more deadly, aside from a Kumo nin who was talking to someone else in him. "Hey B, who's the one pumping out that power?" said a voice to the nin now known as B. "Well, 80, that be the son of the man who moves like bro, who moves like a bird but fight like a beast." "Why you ask, got something that's making you jello 80? Said B. "Don't ask about the rap, cause I don't do rap." "Shut it with the rap B, but yeah, that power is familiar to me, so keep an eye out B," said 80, and with that B just look on while nobody noticed Naruto's eyes were slitted like a dragon. The cage was also in shock at how Naruto managed to completed the 4th just you, and was planning on how to either turn him to his side or him because of his power. Competitors box. What the heck is that? shouted Sakura as she covered her ears along with the rest of the nin there, but the most shocked were the Namikaze family as they saw their brother did something that Minato couldn't do, along with Kakashi, who arrived late with Sasuke because he was asked by Jin to teach him some. Just you was bug-eyed at what was Naruto doing, while Sasuke just see that how the dope could have more power than him. Field. Kenzo did a deer in the headlights expression as he saw his brother did something his father couldn't, and that was completing the Rasengan, and right now he was gonna use it on him, so reacting quickly he did some hand signs and quickly called out wind style. Wind dragon justu, and with he spew out a dragon made of wind heading straight for Naruto, who raised an eyebrow at the just you but shrugged before dispelling his clones and proceeded to throw the Rasenshuriken, which then made everyone shouted out. Cage box. He can throw it, shouted a very shocked Minato while the rest were bug-eyed at it. Competitor's box. He can throw it, shouted the nins there with a slack-jawed and bug-eyed expression. Even Shikamaru was wide awake and Choji dropped his bag of chips, and the most shocked was the Namikaze family and Kakashi. Field. The shuriken and the dragon match each other, but the Rasenshuriken overpowered the dragon and it continued on its path, where Kenzo managed to KAWAMARI with a log which the shuriken hit, and the impact was spectacular as the shuriken exploded into a dome of wind. The only thing that was there was the small crater the dome made, which everyone noted at the controlled destruction that move made, as almost all of them came down from the shocked earlier on, while Kenzo sighed in relief until he heard a voice behind him. Lesson 2. Never take your eyes off your opponent. But before he could react, he was kicked from behind straight into Naruto, who punched him in the gut that made him double over before he judo throw him to the ground, where another Naruto followed it up with an axe kick before disappearing, and the one that throw him continued with a 180 spin throw into a running Naruto, who slid under him and kick him towards the sky, where 4 more appear and grab his limbs and then throw Kenzo to the floor before one more knee him in the gut before mouthing boom. A large explosion was made from where Kenzo was, and it made a lot of dust covering that area. Naruto looked on a little, waiting for the proctor to call the match, when suddenly a torrent of water came out from the smoke, and Naruto jumped to avoid the water and landed without a scratch as he looked on to see the dust clear, and there was a toad standing in front of Kenzo who looked a little worse for wear, but Naruto was more focused on the toad, who is magenta-colored toad with black markings on his face, arms, and legs with horn-like protrusions on his head. He wears a black kimono with a white sash and mesh armor underneath. He keeps a sukiyaki-like shield wrapped around his back and his sasumata in his hand. Kenzo-san, are you alright? Said the toad, while Kenzo just gave him a thumbs up before pointing at Naruto and told him to fight since he was on his last legs. The toad charged at Naruto and thrust his sasumata at him, while Naruto who took out his sword to block the strike, but the toad managed to push him back bit by bit before Naruto managed to dig in deep and hold his ground before swinging his sword upwards along with the sasumata, and then gave a lightning-enhanced punch at the toad that sent him flying back towards Kenzo's, whose eyes widened when he saw Naruto throw the big toad back at him. Naruto just gave a chuckle and said, "Not bad, but looks like you've only got enough juice to call a normal-size battle toad, and I guess you managed to absorb some natural chakra to lessen the blow, but not completely, since I know for a fact you didn't complete your sage training from the pervert virgin writer." Which shocked Kenzo at how Naruto knew about it before he continued. "You know, I am slightly glad that the blondie and the white-haired limp didn't let me sign their summoning contract, because if they did I wouldn't get this badass summoning justu." As Naruto slammed the ground after biting his thumb and did the hand signs, and then a large poof of smoke appear, and what came out shocked the crowd once more. Because what came out from that smoke was a large red armored dragon mixed with gold and silver on it. Ryuki Dragon Survive Mode. Sorry, couldn't find a site that could describe it properly, and the size is about the same as the series. To say the least, it was intimidating to anyone that gaze upon it, and once more the crowd shouted at what Naruto had summoned. Cage box. What the hell, Minato? You had the legendary dragon summons all along. Said the Raikage as he stared at the summons in shock because like every ninja in the world knows about one of the legendary summons along with 3 more that was said to be lost in time, and right now he and everyone else was looking at one. Minato was even more shocked at how his son got the legendary summons but quickly shook his head and said, "No, I didn't know that my son had the dragon contract." The Raikage looked at him suspiciously before dismissing it since he wasn't lying, but the Kage was seething at how the child got the dragon contract and decided that he would either turn him or him before it was too late. B on the other hand was busy talking to his tenant. B, remember when I said to keep an eye out for him? Okay, this time stay away from him. B somewhat looked on in shock and was about to ask, rap before 80 continued, if that kid has that summoning contract then you better hope he don't got enough juice to summon out the big boss and fight me, cause if he can then we are ed beyond all reason since the boss could kick all our Biju collective at the same time, so if you want to call me out and fight him, you better pray he doesn't use the big guns on us. To say the least, B was shocked at how his buddy was scared of the boy's boss summons, but after hearing some of the legends that the boy's summons had he was a little weary about it. Competitor's box. What the heck? That baka has a better summons than Kenzo-kun, he should give to him instead. Shouted the harpy once more as everyone covered their ears before suddenly Yugito went behind her and knocked her out straight, which everyone was glad for before all of the return to the summons that Naruto summoned and now was praying for Kenzo a little despite him being in field. What but how? Asked Kenzo while inside the Kyuubi, as shocked and somewhat a little afraid of what the kid summoned out, and if it remembered the boss of that summons well its host can kiss his arrogant goodbye. Easy, I'm just that awesome. Let's rock Ryuki, I know, not very original, sue me. Said Naruto, and the dragon nodded before charging at the toad, who managed to get out from his shocked state and blocked the charge but was sent flying back by the force. Before the toad could recover, the dragon flew up before arching his body back, and then he spewed a torrent of fire at the toad, whose shield managed to take to full force of it, but some of his skin was singed a little, and while the toad was fending of Ryuki, Kenzo again was hit by an uppercut from Naruto, who capitalized from the shock earlier on before flipping into an axe kick which sent him to the ground. Naruto went for a stomp, but Kenzo rolled out of the way and he quickly got up and used his chains despite having low reserves right now, to which Naruto countered by doing a quick draw with one of his sword laced with wind chakra that made the chains missed him as the chains flew past him harmlessly, but the wind managed to hit Kenzo because he didn't have enough strength to dodge and was eating dirt once more when he landed. He got up once more, but then he noticed a shadow that was getting bigger and bigger, and he looked up to see the toad that was fighting earlier on was falling down, and it landed on Kenzo hard. The situation right now was Kenzo and the toad was flat on their stomach eating dirt, while Naruto and Ryuki were staring at their attempt at getting up but knew they won't last. Well, whelp, ready to deal the final blow to these pathetic losers, said Ryuki while Naruto just smirked, which was matched by his own before they did their final attack. Naruto jumped onto Ryuki's back as he gave a loud roar before they picked up speed as it flew before Ryuki slowly transformed into a bike and both of the charged at them. Kenzo and the toad tried to get out of the way, but then Naruto did a wheelie and the dragon's head came out and started spewing fireballs at them so they couldn't escape. Once it reached them, Naruto quickly slammed the front down and it caused a small crater, and both Kenzo and the toad was sent flying on the opposite end of each other while Naruto slid the bike to a stop as he looked on to the damage he did, which was the toad poofing out of existence while Kenzo was not moving, and the proctor decided to check on him. After a while he called the match and declared Naruto the winner while calling the medics to get Kenzo out of there. There was a small silence before the entire crowd went wild as they cheered for Naruto's victory while Naruto basked in it for a while as he went back to the seats. Cage box. Well, that was a surprising turn of events. I never thought that your son could do all that and summon a dragon and still had chakra to spare. said A. Minato didn't answer anything but settled for the nod as they turned back to the last of the semifinals match. Competitors box. Naruto went to the box to wait, and as he passed by Raito, both just gave a smirk that showed that they will meet in the finals. Field. Both competitors look on at each other as they size up one another while calculating each other while trying to figure out how to win in Temari's case, while Raito just look bored a little with his arms folded as they wait for the match to start, and the proctor got ready and then he started the match. Temari started quickly as she used her fan and did a sweep that sent a huge gust of wind at Raito, who just raised an eyebrow at before shaking his head a little as he took one of his spear and did an upward slash which made a fire slash came out of it, and it clashed with the wind, but the fire overpowered the wind which made it even more powerful when it was sent back towards Temari, who did a KAWAMARI as she appeared to the side of Raito and did the wind scythe JUSTU again, which nailed him straight on. The proctor was about to call the match when all of a sudden a fist came out from underneath Temari which nailed her in the chin and was sent flying before Raito delivered a punch to her gut which sent her to the ground. Temari was about to get up, but then Raito stabbed his spears in between Temari's hands and he held a kunai at her throat as he looked into her eyes, which told her what he wanted, and she did by saying, "I forfeit." The crowd was shocked at how fast the match ended, but nevertheless they still gave some applause to both competitors. Even though Raito was a little upset he didn't get a chance to show off earlier on, but this time he managed to fight someone that could give him the fight he always wanted. Cage box. Though it was quick but it no doubt impressive, said the cage, which was agreed by Minato as a laugh before saying, "That's right. Raito is in a whole other league, so don't worry about all your genin being defeated by him, so no worries." And after that match was a short break where Minato just flashed to the competitors area. Competitors box. Once Minato appeared, the people there paid their respects before he acknowledged it and went to his family, who was happy to see him except for Kenzo, who was knocked out by Naruto, who he saw was staring at Raito, who was doing the same before. Both gave a small nod before turning back to whatever they were doing. Minato walked over towards Naruto as he tried to rekindle his oldest once more and probably try to get some answers from what he did earlier. "Hey son. Congratulations for making it to the finals. I hope you aren't scared or anything." "Hello Hokage-sama," said Naruto in a cold tone which made him flinch a little before continuing. "I will be fine as I have already prepared myself." "Oh, how about you tell me how you managed to complete the Rasengan? I am curious at how you did it." "Sorry Hokage-sama, but how about you learn it yourself since you are the so-called prodigy?" And continuing that, "Don't bother to ask where I got the summons because I'm not gonna tell, so how about you go back to your seat since the match is about to start." Minato frowned at what his son told him but complied, thinking that his son will probably never forgive at what he did. Even though in his mind he thought it was the right thing to do at the time, so he flashed back to the cage box watching the last match of the day and thinking later on he and Jiraiya along with the rest of the family should have a talk. Truthfully, it was supposed to be longer, but there were some glitches and had to be redone. Field. This was the last match of the day and everybody was excited at the action that happened during the match and was anticipating on what to come next as both of the finalists waited for the signal to start the match, which the proctor did, but most of the people's hopes were put out as they stood there unmoving and was about to start booing until Naruto spoke. "So how do you want to play this, slow and steady or quick to the finished?" asked Naruto. Raito just smirked and said, "Not too slow since you get to fight while I got just a warm-up, so how about we start off with this?" All of a sudden Raito exploded into flames which shocked everyone thinking he was dead, but then something strange happened as the flame then died down and everyone was shocked to see Raito turn into a living ball of fire as his hair was flame red as it was swaying like a candle and his eyes had no pupils but was orange and his noticeable skin was like lava with rock hard skin and there were red trails that looked like cracks you see in a volcano before it starts to erupted. All in all, the people were awed by his appearance. "Like it. said Raito in a deep voice as he eyed his opponent, who in turn gave a smirk as he gave a thumbs up before saying, "Not bad. So if you want to go with that first, fine by me. After all, you have got to fight fire with lightning." As Naruto put his hand on his face as he looked down, and then black clouds started coming in as the winds blew strongly, which made a lot of people covered their eyes from the force, and then a bolt of lightning struck Naruto, which earned a gasp, and Kushina shouted, "Naruto," in worry along with her daughters, but then something happened. Instead of the lightning destroying Naruto, it somehow was absorbed by Naruto, who was making small static around him, and he looked up while he made his hair slicked back and somehow stayed there, which turned as white as snow, and blue cracks appear on his face while his eyes turn electric blue and sparks were coming out of it, and like Raito, Naruto turned into a human lightning pole, which freaked out a lot of people at the power both were generating. Not bad at all. So are you ready?" said Raito as he took out both his spears. That's what could be described in this instance, because when Naruto and Raito clashed in their current form, created a shockwave that made everyone there covered their eyes from it, and when they opened back to see the aftermath, they were shocked at the sight, because in the middle of the ring was a crater the size of a city block, and in it was Naruto and Raito trying to overpower each other while both of them were emitting their elemental powers, which were both wild yet control as they fight for dominance. The people there shivered when they saw the image of a dragon and a tiger trying to tear each other apart. The deadlock ended when both of them pushed each other, which made them kick up dust as they skid in the arena. Both had to use their weapons to stop the momentum. Once they stopped, Naruto struck first by slamming his swords down as he called out Dragon's Drive, and 6 lightning dragons the size of a cart came out heading straight for Raito, who slammed his own weapon down to the ground, which created a dome made of earth, which the dragons hit, and a loud explosion occurred. The dust slowly cleared to see no one there. Naruto raised an eyebrow a little before disappearing in a flash of lightning as the spot he was once in was struck from below, which was a pillar of fire that erupted from the ground. Once the fire died down, in its place was Raito, ready to strike, but was sent to defense as he blocked the lightning that was Naruto, which sent him flying back into the wall. Naruto stood for a moment as he looked onto the place he sent Raito crashing into, and then his sixth sense kicked in as he put his blades up to block the spears that were looking to pierce through his skull, which created another shockwave as the second deadlock started, but ended much quicker when Naruto twisted his swords outwards along with Raito's spears, and then quickly twisted it inwards with god-like speed, which disarmed Raito, but Naruto wasn't prepared for a stone pillar that knocked him in the gut that sent him flying while also losing his swords. Without missing a beat, Raito encased his fist in flames and dashed straight at the flying Naruto, who managed to regain his footing in mid-air as he brought down his fist like a hammer as he called out Lightning Breakdown Hammer, which made a crack in the ground with lightning on it that was sent straight for Raito, who saw it coming and countered with his own as he punched the ground and said Volcanic Eruption. That moved created loud explosions as a small trail of volcanoes went to meet Naruto's Just You, which clashed with the force of a shitload of explosive notes, and that wouldn't be able to compare to this. Which made the crater a little more deeper than it was earlier, but this time both fighters didn't wait for the smoke to clear as they charged in recklessly into the smoke, and both their elemental encased fist connected, which resulted in a loud boom which parted the smoke, and both wasted little time as they used their superior speed and strength and started a fist fight, which oddly enough the only thing they hit were the fist, but that didn't mean it wasn't dangerous, as the shockwave that the slugfest they were doing can attested to, as the shockwave kicked up wind and dust, and that's not counting their elements that were coming out from it as it burned the grass on the ground and made cracks in the surrounding walls. As both the behemoth of a genin clashed, the spectators were silent in awe as they see these two duke it out like mad men, but that ended when both of them jumped back while doing hand signs before landing before calling out fire style, fire wave destruction, water style, giant torrent wave, For Raito was a wave of fire that came out of his mouth headed straight for Naruto, who in turn fired a wave of water which neutralized the fire, turning it into steam which engulfed the bottom half of the arena, which made everyone unable to see what was going on in there until they heard clashing in the steam, which made them wondered what was going on in there until they heard wind style, dance of the whirlwind. And what occurred was a mini tornado that appeared in the middle of the ring that made the steam present disappear, and the crowd look on back to see Naruto and Raito squaring off once more with both their weapons back on their hands. Hey, not bad, guess that's what to expect from my rival, said Raito. Don't sell yourself short, this has been one of best fights yet. So how long you think you got left in that form? Said Naruto. A minute give or take, you. Same, so let's get wild, baby. Both grin and continued once more with a loud clash, and in a blur of movement steel and steel clashed with on another as Naruto and Raito tried to outdo one another, and in the process the ground and surrounding walls started to riddle with slash marks, and the spectators along with the hidden Anbu had to duck as the slashes headed straight for them, even the cages as their chairs were split one way or another. Okay, I know Raito is on another league compared to the Genin, and your son has proven more than enough that he's above Genin, but this is just ridiculous. They should be Junin or even Anbu right now. Shouted the Raikage as he dodged another slash, while the rest just silently agreed, and all of them wondered who the hell made them this strong. The clash continued on until both of them jumped back and sheathed their weapons as Naruto quickly created a Rasengan and raised it above his head as he pumped wind chakra into it, while Raito put both his palms together and pointed at Naruto until a giant ball of fire was created in it, and when both of them finished their attack in less than 3 seconds until both launched their attacks. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. Fire style. Big Bang attack. While Naruto threw his shuriken, Raito fired a giant ball of fire that burned the grass as it traveled to meet with Naruto's shuriken. Once they met, it's like the elements themselves are facing off each other in a fight for bragging rights, as the explosion did no justice because that was something that no genin could possibly do, and even a cage had some difficulty doing this kind of damage, as they saw the entire ground was nothing more than a crater, and most were thanking every god in existence that the stadium didn't give out, and that's just the people inside the stadium, while on the outside the enemy nins were wondering who was it that could put out such power and prayed that didn't have to face him or her. Back at the field was covered in smoke from the attack earlier on, and everyone was on the edge of their seats as they witnessed what could be one of the best matches of the year. The smoke slowly cleared to see both Naruto and Raito both panting in exhaustion as both their clothes were ripped along with some cuts and bruises on it, but they still held their grins before Naruto spoke. What's the matter? Tired already? Not on your life? Panted Raito as he took back out his spears, while Naruto just took out 2 of his swords, one in each hand before meeting Raito's charge. As he blocked one of the spears with his sword while another tried a sneak attack with an upward slash which missed as Raito managed to lean back to avoid it, but Naruto pressed on as he pushed the spear that he blocked early on that made Raito stumbled a little, and he capitalized as he dashed forward with a stab which Raito avoided by kicking the side of the sword as he did a downward slash at Naruto. Naruto countered as he put one of his sword up to block it while turning his body in a 180 spin along with his sword as he did a horizontal slash which managed to nick Raito in the stomach, but Raito managed to get a shot in with a stab, but it only cut Naruto's cheek a little as he managed to lean a little to dodge it. Naruto continued on with a downward X slash on Raito, who in turn blocked it, and he gave a Spartan kick to Naruto which sent him back a little before Naruto decided to take out all of his swords to clash with Raito's spears, but the force both of them used caused their weapons to fly off and impaled themselves onto the ground and walls. And as if both of them could read each other's mind, they discarded the top half of their clothing, which made most of the female population faint from blood loss at looking at their body, which looked like it was carved from stone, and then both of them punched each other in the face at the same time. Both stumbled a little before getting it back on, with Naruto punching his gut while Raito returned it with an uppercut to Naruto's jaw, who managed to boot his face in retaliation. As Naruto back-flipped and landed on the ground, he was met with a fist to his face courtesy of Raito, who in turn was punch when Naruto recovered, and they continued the slugfest to see who would fall first, while some of the spectators were having some discussion about this odd moment in the fight. Spectator stands. "What the hell are they doing fighting like that and not bothering to dodge or block it?" said an exasperated Ino. "That's because they are fighting to see who will give out," said Guy as he appeared with Rock Lee, who's in a wheelchair because of his fight with Gaara, and even though Tsunade managed to heal him, it still needed some time before he could fight again. Everyone look at him as he continued on. "This fight isn't to see whose body stronger. This fight is to see whose will give out first, since I can tell these two are destined to be rivals to the very end." Everyone there looked a little shocked at what Guy had said, and before Lee could ask something, a sudden spike in power occurred and everyone turned back to see what was going on, and was shocked to see that both Naruto and Raito could still give out such power. Field. Both fighters stood opposite of each other when both of them punched each other a little early on, which sent them flying into the wall, which they come out of both battered and bruised but still held on to the smirk they had. But now they realized that the fight is coming to an end, and like some unspoken signal they planned to end it with a bang as they called back their weapons as they got ready for their final attack. All of a sudden both managed to pump out their chakra, which was somehow visible to all, which was scary to most of the spectators there, since they saw Genin no older than 13 doing that much damage and can still go on to do some more. On an unknown signal, Raito started to twirl both his spears until fire started coming out of it as his red aura burned fiercely that would scare a lesser man shitless, as a visage of a tiger appear looking ready to pounce on its prey. For Naruto, he started to do some upward slashes with his 6 swords in a crisscross fashion as small wisps of blades surrounded his blue aura that looked menacingly to those who gaze upon it, as a dragon appeared ready to slaughter those who stand before him. They kept doing it until the build-up was so strong it made the heavens howl and the earth shake in fear of these two, and once the build its peak, both their aura animals roared, which scared everyone there was what started the charge. Both of them were charging at each other, and the gap slowly lessened until they were in range. Once there, they attack as they shouted their skills. Fire style. Supernova explosion. Wind style. Eye of the storm. Both moves clashed, but this took the cake as the explosion created from these two monsters were so powerful that the ground cracked into different directions, and it even reached the walls, which made the stadium rumbled and shake, which made everyone prayed that the stadium would hold and not crush them. The explosion was massive as it managed to be seen from the outer walls of Konoha, and the ninjas who were guarding it were in awe at the ferocity of it. Back to the field. The entire stadium was covered in smoke in light of what happened during the Clash of the Titans, as it was dubbed later on. As it slowly cleared, the people there were able to make out the two shapes that were Naruto and Raito, and once the entire smoke was gone, they were shocked to see that both competitors were still standing with their weapons in between each other, but they weren't moving or even twitching, which caused some concern, and the proctor went down there to check it out and silently prayed that don't continued on while he was in their range. Once he reached them, he was shocked at the sight. This is because he saw both competitors passed out while still standing in their position. He checked for a pulse to find some on both of them, seeing they weren't dead, and was about to call the match until a voice came out. "Don't call it just yet," said a tired voice who belonged to Naruto, whose eyes looked like they could close any minute. "Hey, looks like this match goes to you, dragon," said an equally tired Raito before he rolled his eyes and fall back to the field while Naruto still held his position. The proctor looked between both of them until he called out, "Winner, Naruto date." Once he finished that, Naruto dropped to his knees and proceeded to faint. The entire stadium was silent at watching these titans battle it out and watched at how Naruto managed to stay awake long enough for the proctor to call the match. Slowly some clapping occurred until it got louder and louder until it erupted into a full-on cheering, and even the ninjas there had to give credit to both these ninjas as they gave what they had on the field. Spectators stand. Wow, that was one hell of a match. Makes me glad somehow that the guy didn't use those moves on me, remind me not to piss both of them. Said a somewhat nervous Kiba, to which everyone there nodded in agreement while Sasuke just see that how those two were stronger than him. Cage stand. I must admit that was probably the most intense matches I've ever seen, though I must ask, how did you two manage to train these genin anyway? Asked the Cage. Your guess is as good as mine. Said a confused Raikage while Minato looked on in sadness at his son who managed to go so far without his or his family's help was being carted away in a stretcher. Well, since that the Chunin exams have officially ended, let's rest for a day or two before announcing those who could become Chunin, since some of them were quite wounded. Said Minato, which all three agreed for different reasons. The two were being rushed by medics to the hospital because they weren't responding much until Tsunade checked on both of them and found out that they were having chakra exhaustion with some cuts and bruises and should be ready to go in a few days, but now they needed rest, and with that everyone headed back home so they could visit tomorrow to check up on them. Next day, the sun shone down through the window as it managed to wake Naruto up, who was grumbling at how he would put out the sun or stuff like that. Once he opened his eyes fully to see that was in a hospital and was a little confused until it hit him that he and Raito duke it out and he became the winner of the bout. Yo, looks like you're up. Said a voice, which Naruto turned to his side to see Raito in bandages on his body while he was chewing on a stick, and he looked a little worse for wear. Huh, why would they put both of us in the same room? Asked a confused Naruto as he looked down to see that he was in the same situation as Raito, who just shrugged until the doors opened to see a nurse who was shocked to see both of them awake. How in the world? You two shouldn't be able to wake up for another day or so, said the nurse while both the wounded just looked at each other before looking back to the nurse and just shrugged, which made the nurse sweat drop a little when an explosion occurred which shook the hospital a little. All of a sudden an Anbu came out of nowhere and told the three there, the sound ninjas are attacking, and the cage turned out to be Orochimaru in disguise. We have to evacuate the people here. Oh hell no, the snake owes me his skin, so I ain't going nowhere until I skin that sob for running from me. Come on Raito, let's show these bastards who they're messing with. Said Naruto as he bit his thumb along with Raito and did some hand signs as both slammed their hands down and called out. Summoning Justu. Streets. Kasuga was in predicament as she threw another shuriken that at another sound nin, but another came out of nowhere ready to strike, but she managed to block it with her kunai, and then she had to dodge a Justu by jumping onto the roof, but that was a mistake as a giant snake summon charged into the building which managed to flip Kasuga into the air. She closed her eyes as she prepared for the inevitable, but it never came. Slowly she opened her eyes and then she suddenly blushed because she was being held in a bridal carry by a half Naruto who was showing of his impressive body, and she looked down to see she was on top of a red dragon with two mouths. Well, cute girls falling from the sky, it must be my lucky day. Said Naruto, who showed of his fox-like grin which made Kasuga turn scarlet red. Naruto then turned to the snake that is terrorizing the streets, so he turned to his dragon and said, "Come on Slifer, there's a snake skin wallet with our name on it," which the dragon just nodded as it charged at the two-headed snake. The two-headed snake was shocked at seeing the legendary summons heading for it and decided to hightail out of there, but was a second too late as Slifer fired a blast of fire at it which was enhanced by Naruto's wind chakra, which turned the snake into a barbecue. Once that was done, Naruto with Kasuga still in his arms jumped off Slifer as it took the smoky snake and disappear in a poof of smoke, who was joined by Raito as he landed next to them. Well, how was your side? Asked Naruto. It was good, Bawako liked that he could bring some snake meat back for the cubs to try out. Said Raito before continuing on with a tick mark on his eyebrow. Do you mind putting my teammate down, cause I think we are safe right now. Hey, you can't blame me if the sky started to rain cute girls like her into my arms, isn't that right, Kasu-chan? Said Naruto while Kasuga was impersonating a tomato very quickly and couldn't say anything before she was gently put down by Naruto, who looked at a direction with Raito with a grin and said, "Ah, the pedophile decided to bail before I could give him my farewell gift. Oh well, want to help me with the send-off?" Which Raito just grinned when he suddenly made a bow and arrow of fire which was twice his size while Naruto created the lightning spear. Kasuga was shocked at how these two could still do so much despite their titanic bout yesterday, and if she is sensing it right, these two moves could probably take out at least half a block. She shuddered a little, thinking what could happen if both of them worked together, and slightly pity to whoever was gonna be on the end of their moves, but she was brought out off it when Raito fired his arrow while Naruto threw his spear, which traveled in supersonic speed. With Orochimaru. Looks like this plan failed since the one-tailed was sealed by that boy, and because of it the Sand decided to quit on us. Said a furious Orochimaru while Kabuto looked back only to see an arrow made of fire and a lightning spear he knew too well, and was about to warn his master but was a tad bit slow as both moves connected. Konoha. In Konoha, people around the village that was cleaning up from the failed invasion look on to see an explosion in the horizon, and most wondered what could do something like that, and quickly some Anbu headed for the explosion to investigate. Rooftop. Think you guys overdid it, said a slightly nervous Kasuga. Naruto and Raito just look at each other before turning back to her and said, "Nope," which earned a sweat drop from her, but she decided to let it go since they were probably needed for the cleanup. A few days later, Naruto was enjoying walking down the streets as he looked into the distance to see a still rebuilding wall since the snake summon broke it during the invasion. It had been a few days since he, along with Raito, Samui, Tamari and Shikamaru, were promoted to Chunin, and he was exited since he was one step closer to becoming more well known. The Hokage was still in a meeting with the council to discuss about Suna, even though they did not participate in the invasion at the last minute, but the implications were enough to start a war, so right now both sides are discussing on how to end it peacefully. But he didn't care about that right now as he walked along the road without a care in the world as he relaxed for a bit until two people passed by him who were wearing straw hats that covered their faces with black cloaks with red clouds on it. Naruto turned into a feral grin as he recognized a familiar chakra signature and went to follow the signature. With the cloaked duo, "Hey Itachi, what's got you so spooked?" said the taller of the duo, who had blue skin and eyes and teeth like a shark. "We just passed someone that I knew before, and if I'm right he is gonna find us, so we should hurry before he does," said smaller of the duo, who is now known as Itachi, who has onyx eyes and hair tied into a small ponytail, who was looking slightly nervous under the stoic face, which confused the taller one for a moment until a voice rang out. Well, look who the cat dragon. How've you been, Weasel?" said Naruto, who was standing on a tree branch before dropping down on them. "You know the kid," said the blue-skinned man. "Yes. He used to come over to my house just to hang out with me and my mother, and I treated him like a brother. By the way, how is Sasuke anyway, Naruto?" said Itachi. Naruto gained a tick mark when Itachi asked about his brother. Honestly, you should have the little prick. That sob kept on ranting about his clan is the best and how he would you someday, and he should get whatever he wants on a silver platter. The only saving grace you did was not to everybody there, including Makoto, and I thank you for that, because if you did, I would have hunted you down out of spite. So what brings you back to the place who set out a bounty on you after the Uchiha fiasco? None of your business, Naruto, so would you kindly step aside before I am forced to the person who was left a legacy for by him, said Itachi, to which Naruto unconsciously touched his left eye where his eye patch was before turning back to him and said, "Nah, There's no way I am sitting this one out since I like to try myself against 2S rank missing nin. Isn't that right, Kisame of the Hidden Mist? The one now known as Kisame eyes widen a bit before he grinned his shark-like teeth and said, "Oh, so the kid does know me." Which Naruto just replied with a shrug before he did a quick draw with his sword, which made the missing nins jumped aside as the slashed laced with wind chakra tore through the small road they were on. Naruto looked on before jumping to the left as he avoided a large bandaged sword that was meant to him and landed on a small river which he had to block some shuriken thrown at him. Suddenly a giant ball of fire came at him and quickly he made one-handed sign before calling out water style. Water wave wall, and a giant wall made of water met the fire ball, which made some steam, which made Naruto hard to see a little before he had to put up his sword to block the incoming strike, which made the smoke part away to see Kisame with a downward strike on Naruto, who blocked it before he pushed the monster of the mist back before he quickly made the hand signs and called out water style. Water dragon Justu. A dragon made of water quickly came out and headed straight for Kisame and was about to hit him before another water dragon that came out of nowhere and clashed with Naruto's own, which made a loud splash, and using this Kisame made his own hand sign and called out water style. Water shark bomb, which a shark made of water came out from the river and headed straight for Naruto, who smirked, which confused the two a little before seeing the shark being split in half and passed Naruto harmlessly. "Hey, looks like the kid got some moves, Itachi," said Kisame while Itachi was thinking on how to end the fight quickly. But that notion ended quickly when all of a sudden Jiraiya and some Junin appeared in front of them and was ready to apprehend them, but Itachi didn't look fazed before he turned to Kisame, who nodded sadly at not being able to continue the fight against Naruto before he turned to Naruto and said, "Eventha, this isn't what we came here for. I must admit you have grown strong, Naruto. I hope we could meet under a different circumstances, but for now we are gonna retreat, and I do hope you taken good care of his Amaterasu." A large torrent of black flames appeared and headed straight for the nins, who jumped out of the way except for Naruto, who sheathed his sword and looked on to the flames and stood with his arms crossed his chest ready to challenge it. Some of the nins called out to him to get away, but all of a sudden the flames were somehow absorbed into a void and then it disappeared along with the flames, which shocked the people there, while Naruto just looked on in the space where both Itachi and Kisame stood, and he knew that they were both long gone. He wiped the underside of his eye patch with a handkerchief and noticed that it was blood coming out from his eye patch, and he sighed a little before turning back to see Jiraiya with some of the Junin, who didn't go and find the two missing nins. Well, that's because at first the meeting between the council was to renegotiate the treaty between them and Suna because of the invasion of the Sound Village a few days ago, but that went downhill quickly, as the greedy sob of the civilian council wanted to increase the prices for their products to Suna, while the crippled Warhawk said to go to war against them, which was denied quickly because they may be left vulnerable to others who might take advantage of it, like Iwa, despite not showing any outward hostility, which shut them up for the moment, but right now is even worse since Jiraiya along with his eldest and some Junin have appeared and told them that Itachi, Uchiha and Kisame, 2S ranked missing nin, have entered their village without alerting anyone, but they escape, which landed him in this predicament as the council started shouting on what to do until he got tired of it and slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "Okay, that is enough. Right now we need to figure out what happened when they entered, so would everybody just sit down and talk like grown-ups, or do I have to call Ibiki and Anko here to make sure you stay in line?" said Minato as he leaked out some ki, which scared the civilians' side while the shinobi side just stayed quiet. Once everyone was quiet, he motioned Naruto and Jiraiya to continue on, and by the end of it Minato was not happy as he had an idea why 2S ranked missing nin were here, so he decided to finish it up by ordering the Anbu to increase the patrols around the village and told the council that they will finish this tomorrow, but not before telling Jiraiya and Naruto to go the house since they need to talk about something, which made Naruto slightly curious that Minato wanted to talk to him with the Toad Sage but decided to go for the heck of it. Uzumaki Namikaze home. The three headed inside the house after the meeting to see the triplets along with Kakashi were in the living room with Shizune while Kushina and Tsunade just came out from the kitchen with some snacks and drinks since Minato wanted to talk to everyone about what happened, so that's why everyone was there. Once everyone got settled, Minato decided to drop the bomb and told everyone what happened in the meeting, and everyone aside from Naruto and Jiraiya who knew what happened was shocked to hear two S-ranked missing nins entered the village to kidnap the triplets, which worried Kushina as she heard what could have happened to her children and was worried that Naruto stood up against both of them, but she was glad that he didn't end up in the hospital or worse. She shook those thoughts aside to hear what Minato planned to do in this situation. Since it has come down to this, we have decided to up your training, which means that we will train you to use the Kyuubi's power properly since the threat decided to hit close to home, and we want you all to be able to fend them off long enough for backup to arrive since you can't face them head on as you are now, but don't worry, once done you could take on anybody like me," said a grinning Minato, which put a smile on everybody when they heard that they could be like their father. Naruto just looked on impassively as he knew that it was gonna be like it was before, the triplets getting the affection while he was extra baggage, so with that he decided to walk out of there until Naruto spoke up. "Then what about Oni-chan too-san?" Now that put a wrinklier in the mood as the people there almost forgotten about the oldest of the siblings and turned to where Naruto, who was in mid-step in heading out the house, turned back with a raised eyebrow to see what the response is gonna be. "Who cares about him? He probably ran away like he did when he met those S-ranked nins earlier," said a smug Kenzo. Naruto looked at him with a deadpan expression while thinking, did he just forgot I kicked Hi-san nearly destroyed the stadium? Granted I and Raito limit ourselves so we don't turn the village into a crater, but still. As he shook his head in annoyance before saying, "Don't worry too much about me. I'll be fine, and if you need me just tell Naruto and she relay the message." And with that he walked out the door, leaving the people inside to think about what he said before getting back to the conversation they had early on. Night time. Naruto right now was lying down on the soft grass of one of the training grounds as he stared up into the star night sky and wondered what he should do right now, since he knew that training the triplets in using the Kyuubi's chakra was important and would take a lot of time. He wondered what the dynamics was gonna be right now, since he did gain back some of the family love he never had aside from Naruto, despite being minuscule as it were to him, but for the moment he didn't care and was about to rest his eyes a little until a presence alerted him. He knew who this person was, so he didn't bother to get up, and all he did was open his eye back slowly and said, "What do you want, you crippled old bastard?" And next to Naruto was a bandage-up old man who was holding a cane for support, and beside him were four ninjas who dressed like the Anbu, but instead their masks were blank with the word "Nei" on it, and Naruto knew who these people were. After all, he did send back a couple of their comrades' heads back to the Warhawk in a parcel with a bow on top of it, since these people don't get the word "no." Danzo did nothing more than just stare at the blonde in front of him. At first he wanted to get the Kyuubi brats so that he could use them as weapons for himself, but that was shot down as soon as it left his mouth, so he tried a different route in using the oldest of the siblings for his own gain, but it backfired on him horribly, so he decided to approach him now to see if he could get him on his side. "I am here to offer you what you denied a while back. Since your parents are now training your siblings in using the fox's chakra, you could learn what they could not teach you," said Danzo. Naruto got up and stared at Danzo dead in his eye and said this, "And what makes you think I will join you? Better yet, what makes you think I would follow a pathetic man's footsteps? Because for all intents purposes you are even weaker than a standard chunin, so my answer is still the same. Or the next time I won't just take your arm off along with those extra organs you had, which by the way thanks, so I could have an excuse for those who died that night to take their legacy and put it into my own," as he rubbed his eye patch a little to spite Danzo, which worked as he gripped his cane harder, "because I don't think they would appreciate a coward like you holding their power, so I took the liberty to relive you of their possessions that you took from them." Naruto then turned to walk away until Danzo could take it that this brat, in his opinion, looked down on him like that and decided to say, I would suggest you reconsider before something bad befalls you or your family, so take my advice brat, you will join me. Which was the last thing he said before all of them heard a click sound. When that sound was heard, 8 thumps was heard by Danzo as he turned to see his bodyguards dead, even the hidden ones from slash marks, as he turned back to see Naruto's head turned so that he could only see the right side of his face before he heard him say, that's quite a bold claim, crippled, but you and I both know you can't back it up since I have all of your documents that you keep around, since you like to play the cloak and dagger shit but still need some leverage on people on paper. So right now you are as powerful as a little puppy since I have everything you own, so think properly before you say your next words, Danzo Shimura. The only reason you're not dead yet is 'cause I need someone that I can control, and you, my mummified friend, are one of the few that worked under me, so take my advice, get thee out of my way, and you might not be living on the street like a beggar, since after all, I have the deeds to your house and your bank account number, and if you think your safe houses can help, don't bother, since I know everything you do, so in a sense I own you bitch, along with a few others. Why did you think that the heirs of the civilian council didn't bother to get on your side when you proposed to have me in your pathetic club? That's because I have them by the proverbial balls, you dipshit, so again you won't nor ever will own me because I own you, so get that through your thick skull, and if you even think about having me, then well, the aftermath won't be pleasant. As soon as Naruto finished that, he disappeared from sight, which made Danzo glared at the spot he was in as he gripped his cane harder until creaking sound was heard as he held one of his arms, as he felt the phantom pains that he was given by Naruto before he turned and walked back to his home while planning on how to get rid of the brat. Next day, Naruto right now was standing in the Hokage office along with his former team along with their teachers as they wait for the Hokage to enter, which he did, and sat down on his chair as he turned to the team in front of him. Okay. Right now I am giving you this mission since this team might need the experience, and also a farewell mission of sorts for Naruto as he already reached Chunin. A film crew hired us to guard them so that they could film a movie as they head for the land of snow, so your job is to make sure that they reach there safely while finishing the show. Any questions? No, then Kakashi, Kushina, you will meet the client at the gate while the rest of you get your stuff ready for a long trip. Dismissed. Meeting area. Naruto and his siblings reached the meeting area to see Kakashi and Kushina there along with a nervous-looking old man as he started looking everywhere for something until a sound came out of nowhere, and the siblings were shocked to see a horse coming straight at them with a person on top of it. All of them jumped out of the way except for Naruto, who jumped and did a somersault that made him land behind the rider, and he knocked her out with a chop before he quickly calmed the horse down. Once he did, he noticed the person who he knocked out was, in his opinion, a beautiful woman with long black hair with bangs that swept on each side of her face and light blue-colored eyes. She was wearing makeup, pink eyeshadow, and red lipstick. She wore a green blouse over a pink jacket with brown gloves. After admiring her for a while, Naruto turned the horse back towards the crew. Later. Right now Naruto was staring out into the sea as the ship he was on traveled towards snow. After the fiasco early on, he and his siblings then later on was told who they were guarding. She was none other than Yukie Fujikaze, a world-renowned actress who starred in a lot of movies and had many fans, which also included Naruto and Narumi, who had stars in their eyes and asked for her signature when she woke up, which was another pain in the when the team realized that she was a total bitch and was more or less on par with the Konoha emo during his brief conversation he had with her along with his teammates, but he really didn't care. Sure, he thought the movie she stars in was nice, but he preferred when the actors that actually liked acting instead of putting up a fake front when filming just for the sake of it. Now he was having his break after the film crew finished up a scene from the movie, so he was relaxing on the deck as he waited for the boat to reach snow. He was slightly annoyed when he had to do this mission with his family. Evan thought he was chunin already, but he didn't care too much about it since he will do his own mission soon, so this was his bon voyage mission before going his somewhat own way, so he enjoyed the feeling of it along with the cool sea breeze that's been blowing in his face. Until something in the distance caught his eye. He squinted to see what it was, and as it got closer, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw a giant glacier floating in front of the ship, which made Naruto be on guard since he thought something this big was coincidentally in the way of the ship they were on, and he was about to tell the crew to go around the glacier until he heard the eccentric director shouting the crew to dock there so he could film the movie, which made Naruto facepalm at his behavior and sweat drop at how the director dismissed what Kakashi and Kushina said, and going on about how movies were made in his opinion like two spandex-wearing idiots from Konoha. So with that in mind, he had no choice but to make sure he and his team can protect his sorry if he got them into trouble. On the glacier. Right now Naruto and his team are on lookout as they try to make sure none of their clients die because of their stupidity, while in the back of his mind he felt like wave all over again, which made him held back a sigh as he thought he just jinxed himself, and once that thought ended, a loud explosion was heard and Naruto saw smoke coming out from an area, but he didn't care much since the person there was weaker than Kakashi in terms of skill if he was feeling chakra right along with two more who appeared after some grudge match talk he heard from the first guy that Kakashi attacked, along with the fact that the actress is some kind of princess if the purple-haired weakling was talking straight. He looked onto the field to see Naruto and Narumi try to tag team a girl who's using some kind of flying device, while Kenzo and Kushina handle a fat guy who couldn't even ride a snowboard if his life depended on it, while Kakashi was fighting the purple-haired jackass who liked his voice a little too much. He was going to help them until his gut told him to duck, and he quickly did as a bullet fly by where his head would have been. He turned to the direction of the shot to see a woman there with a revolver in her hand, which the barrel had some smoke coming out from. She is a very youthful woman with purple-silver hair which is tied up, blue-purple eyes, and a lollipop in her mouth. She was wearing a white kimono with a purple obi sash, and tabi socks with black zori sandals. All in all, Naruto was looking at another babe in his book. So, mind telling me the name of the person who tried to blow my head off and why she did it? Asked Naruto. The woman giggled a little before saying, "My name is Sarara Shirayuki, and apparently you, my handsome friend, are in my way of my job, since the human that summoned me and the other jackass who is really getting on my nerves wanted the girl for something who knows what, and said he'll give us whatever we want if he ruled the country, but I could care less. But the other demon he summoned put me in a curse of sorts, so only he or the other one could control me. So sorry about this, hope you survive though, get 'em boys." Once she finished saying that, a dozen or so things appeared out of nowhere, charge at Naruto along with Sarara. The things were wearing like a traditional Reaper costume complete with the scythe, but their faces were close to a mummified corpse, but that didn't deter Naruto as he prepared for the fight. One swung wildly but missed as Naruto ducked underneath, and he unsheathed his sword which bisected it horizontally. Following the momentum, he did a 180 spin to block a downward strike before giving it a Spartan kick which knocked it into two more of his kind as Naruto swung his sword downwards to deflect another strike. Using his free hand, he unsheathed his other sword which sliced its head clean off before tuning into sand, which weirded him out a little before getting back into focus as he used both his swords to block 3 downward strikes. 2 more tried a pincer attack when Naruto was still holding off the 3, which he noticed and reacted by releasing a dome of lightning, and when he did, the 5 along with 2 more were caught in it, which electrocuted them into sand once more. Once he finished that move, he had to jump to the side as he dodged a couple more bullets aimed at him before suddenly spikes made of ice rained down on him, which missed as he did a KAWAMARI with one of the Reapers, which was turned into a pin cushion before turning into sand. Sakura was impressed at how Naruto managed to see her sneak attack, but she didn't let it get to her since she had a job to do as she summoned more ice spears and sent them straight at Naruto, who rolled out of the way while using some of the Reapers as shields before he finished up his hand sign before calling out wind style, Vortex Dragon. What came out was a giant wind dragon heading straight for Sakura and the Reapers, but surrounding the dragon was wind that turned into a mini tornado which pulled the rest of the Reapers inside of it, while Sakura slammed her hand down and created a couple walls of ice which connected with the dragon in a loud explosion. A large plume of smoke was created from it, but Naruto didn't let his guard down, which was good as he jumped back to avoid being skewered by some ice. The smoke cleared just enough for Naruto to see Sakura with her hands looking like claws made from ice. Whistle, not bad. The other ice user I know couldn't make ice like that. Complimented Naruto. Well, seeing that I am a Uchiha, this is mostly child's play, said Sakura, but before they could continue, Kakashi suddenly shouted to everyone to get on the ship before he and the jackass he was fighting did their just you, which was a giant snow whale with a horn coming out off it, and both of them clashed into each other before one of them slammed the other into the glacier, which was also the place where Naruto and Sakura was fighting on, but both managed to escape it. Naruto landed in front of Kakashi with a tick mark on his forehead and a face that promised pain towards Kakashi, who gulped loudly. Both of them then jumped onto the fleeing ship as it head towards its destination. Snow some time later. So let me get this straight. You thought it would be a good idea for a traumatized woman to come back to the place where her father died because his brother was getting greedy and wanted something he built which nobody even knows about, and you thought it was a good idea to bring her back here before she was even cured said trauma while not even giving us a hint about who she was. Are you out of your freaking mind, you stupid jackass? Said an exasperated Naruto after he got a lowdown of why the snow nins were after them from the manager, who is the aide of Yukie Fujikaze, or better now known as Princess Koyuki Kazuhana, who is now in a Caesar position as he got berated by a younger man as if he were a child being scolded by his parents. If the situation wasn't so serious, the people around them in the trailer right now would probably be laughing theirs off right now. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose before continuing on, and what's worse is that you practically painted a bullseye on her pretty little face by putting her in front of the camera in a goddamn movie, which I might add is well known all throughout the elemental nations. How is she not dead yet before we came astounds me. I am sorry, but she needs to be back here so she could take back the throne and rule Snow, so please help us. Dodo is a tyrant and I fear what could happen if he got his hands on her, said the aide known as Sandeu. Mama, don't be so hard on him, Naruto. I mean, he is doing what he was supposed to do despite not telling us, said Kakashi, but then he had to flinch when Naruto glared at him before saying, I suggest you don't talk to me like that, Hatake. You and I aren't on friendly terms, so don't address me as such. Sandeu continued on as he bowed to them. Please, I'm begging you, please help get our princess back to the throne where she belongs before Dodo decides to do something bad to her if she was captured. Everyone there couldn't help but to look on in pity at the man bowing at them, except for Naruto, who scoffed before saying, yeah, well, good luck with that since she's not in her trailer anymore. Everyone's eyes were wide open when he said that, and before they could protest, Naruto just put his hand up before continuing on. Don't worry, boss been looking out for her since he figured she might do something like this, so he said go on, he'll catch up soon, see ya. And then Naruto poof out of there, showing everyone that he was a shadow clone, which shocked all of them since they didn't notice it. With the real Naruto, Naruto just got the clone's memory as he was trailing behind Koyuki in the trees as he saw her running from the area in panic, which he couldn't blame her for, so he just hung back until she got whatever she had bottled in to let it all out, which she somewhat did when he saw her trip and fell and stayed there for a bit, and that was his K as he jumped down and walked towards her. She managed to get upright and glared at him before saying, what do you want? Gonna take me back there? Naruto just nodded before saying, You know they aren't gonna let you go that easily. I'm not gonna give that whole guilt trip talk cause that ain't my style, but I will tell you this though. Life is a bitch, but what we choose helps us make it more bearable for both ourselves and those around us, so just it up cause no one likes a whiner. Now are you gonna be a whiner, or are you gonna grab the opportunity to be whatever you want in this life of yours? Cause I ain't gonna hold your hand till you get there, so what's it gonna be, princess? Koyuki just stared at the blonde for a moment and thought about what he just said before sighing and nodded, which he smirked before carrying her in a princess carry, which is ironic in this situation, but both didn't care as they started walking back to the crew while making a unique small talk along the way. You know you can't beat Dodo, right? Yep. You know he's gonna you, right? Yep. He's gonna everyone you know. Yep. You're not listening to me, are you? Yep. With that ended the conversation as Koyuki pouted a little for not getting Naruto riled up, while Naruto on the other hand was thinking. Guess Aniki was right, just agree to anything people like her says and she keep quiet. They were now walking in the cavern, which was the shortcut the crew used to get to the other side, with Koyuki still in Naruto's arms, when all of a sudden Naruto noticed a small pulse of chakra traveling through the ground, so he turned to see what it was while Koyuki looked at him and wondered what was going on when she noticed that the ground was melting away until rail tracks were now showing, which made Naruto raised an eyebrow until he heard a sound and turned to see what it was. And when he did, his eyes bulged wide open as he saw a freaking train heading straight for him, so he did what anyone would do in this situation. He tossed Koyuki into the air and caught her piggyback style and proceeded to run like a bat out of hell.